Hey everyone, a very warm welcome to Go Beyond Sports once again. I am extremely excited as always to be on this platform once again, bringing you another expert from the field of sports to join us today and talk about how their field of expertise actually helps sports and sports players. Hello, Suhasini. Thank you so much for joining us on behalf of
Hi.
Qua Nutrition.
Hello. Hi, Sonali. How are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. Thank you
Thank you
so much
so
for
much.
having us, addressing your queries and answering a lot of questions for you. Thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure. I'm just going to give a little brief about what Qua Nutrition was. It is founded by and led by Ryan Fernando, an award-winning celebrity sports nutritionist. The Olympic sports nutritionist plan is his brainchild, and over the last decade, Qua and Ryan have changed the lives of over 6,000 athletes. So, you, Suhasini Vishwanathan, you yourself are a qualified dietitian, a qualified diabetic educator, certified pediatric nutritionist, certified vegan and vegetarian specialist.
Right.
And you have been working with Qua as a nutritionist and head of quality control in dietic management and also nutrition clinics across. I'm going to give a very brief about you again. Is that over close to a decade now, you have been successfully fueling nutrition for some of the national and international level sports players in all sports across the spectrum. And you've helped budding athletes better their personal records. Some of your swimmers and squash players have also competed and won titles across international levels. So it really is not only a pleasure, but it's an honor to have somebody like you on the show today. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Thank you so much for that introduction.
Thank you. So let's dive straight into the topic because there is always, so much knowledge to gain and grasp, and always so much little time to fit all of it in. So, what really is the importance of a targeted diet from the perspective of a sports nutritionist when players start their training on field and on court once again after this lockdown?
Okay, so what is important when they are going to be starting off training is for them to actually make sure, I would rather say it's something important before they start training. So before they start training and while they're right now in the lockdown, it's very important that they are building up their reserves, in the sense they're taking care of the immunity, because when they are going to start training, whenever it's going to be, they're going to be coming in contact with people and you don't know who's going to come from where. And given the virus, everybody's going to get it at some point. So it's very important that they're actually right now at home building up their immunity, so when they are getting back to training, they're not going to be falling prey and falling sick and kind of then having to take another break altogether. So what's very
Right.
important is they need to take care of their nutrition right now. Like now, even more important than then is very, very crucial for them to come and make sure that they are actually eating the right food right now. They're not sitting and junking and making their immune systems weak. And yes, coming to the thing of what they should do when they are back training is, at that time it's going to be a completely different ball game of making sure that they are going to be fueled well for the training and also fueled well between sessions, because the reality of the situation is when they're going to be back, nobody is going to be giving them as much time between as they used to get right now to take a break and come back. It's all going to be an absolute competition. So it's very important that they take care of their recovery when they are back, and training as they used to. And for now, they need to take care of their immunity. That's what I would say.
Right. So tell me something then, are all sports diets the same across the spectrum, or is it then sports specific? So like when you say when the players are going back, would it make a difference as to what kind of sport they are playing? Apart from a diet being individualistic, does it then become also very sports centric?
So the basics of it would be similar, very honestly, for most sports. But if you're going to be speaking about the top athletes who are going to probably get into training and immediately have to go in for a competition somewhere, then yes, it will get sports centric, because then it's going to be primarily governed a lot with the kind of training they're doing. So
Right.
nutrition is to a great extent designed and customized to the type of training that the player does. So yes, sports centric, like yes, when we are looking at a sport like squash, swimming, tennis, it's to some extent there is a difference, because in one you're looking at endurance, in the other you're looking at strength, in the other you're looking at building up oxygen capacity. Yes, so that way there is a slight difference, but it is very very individualistic to the type of training each player does. So the basics is same, but it changes at each individual level, is what I would say.
So in that case, then again, would this diet be very different when the kids go back to the court, or then versus a teenage who's going back, or like you mentioned, a pro player or an international player, or some even veterans and masters? How different would it be for all of these different age categories when they are stepping outside of this lockdown? Say, even if they have sort of tried and maintained their diet as much as possible, how different would it be, and what kind of changes would they all have to adapt to?
The changes, okay, so you're talking about primarily changes different age group wise, right? So
Right.
different age group wise, again, would depend. Like if it's going to be a kid, for sure that, they're going to be getting back to training a little bit slower, not as
Hmm.
much as probably like a pro who's going to go. So for kids, then you're going to be working more on getting them back into eating a fruit before they go for training, making sure that during training they're hydrating themselves, and post training they're taking care of eating something and not starving themselves. While this would be the same across all spectrum, when it is a teenager, then you're also focusing more on, they're likely to have more sessions, they're likely to have more intense sessions. So then you're looking at, okay, okay, they've got more intense sessions, and you have to fuel, probably just water is not going to be enough, you probably need a little more than that. And similarly for a pro player, if they're going to go all out as soon as they go into the session, then and start training, then you also need to get into your amino acids, your proteins, your isotonic drinks and everything, which is again going to be very very dependent on the type of training they're going to do.
So then, while you have touched this topic about, so the extra supplements for recovery and performance, how how does it affect? And of course, knowing you're coming from this very expert sports nutritionist space, but so many of the athletes and players are taking all of these kind of supplements over the counter, or based on the ads that they see, or also just based on a word of mouth. Uh, where do you come in here in this picture, and what would you give us as a little brief as to when to take these and how to actually take them?
So what we do at our clinic is, before we actually get into recommendation of nutritional supplements, we always insist for blood tests to be done. So why we always want to know what each individual is at, and we then given a recommendation on the need basis. So if you're going to only be doing an hour of training in a day, then you don't necessarily need the nutritional supplements as much as somebody who's doing 5 hours of training in a day, right?
Right.
And if you're it and again irrespective of what it is, we always get their blood test done. We check how they're doing, we check how how the kidney is functioning, how their liver is functioning, if everything is okay. And first we start with nutrition intervention. We start with nutrition intervention of figuring out, okay, let's start with food, let's see how food is going to work on them. And then we move into a more advanced thing of, okay, then we go into nutritional supplements. We don't immediately jump into nutritional supplements until and unless an individual is at that level, training at that intensity, where just doing with food they might not get as much as they need or require. So that's how we plan it. So actually we always start with food. We have like a foundation plan where we start with food, and then once we've understood the basis of a person is when we go into recommendation of a nutritional supplement.
Would you consider then, in that case, the whey proteins, and say even something as simple as a BCAA, which most, like I was saying, that most people end up having over the counter or based on an ad or something. Do these primarily make for supplements? as the supplements that you're talking about, or we are actually looking at these being okay, where people are fine, you can just take it over the counter. But when you're going into the performance enhancers and to that kind of a zone, it becomes very important for you to then understand your own body, and that's when expert health comes in. What's your take on both of these things?
We consider even a BCA and like a whey protein as a supplement as well, right?
Right, right,
Because, for example, a BCA is an amino acid which you use during training, right? It helps to
right.
enhance your game. Now, if you're somebody who is, say, about 12 years of age and you are not really even training that much, where you haven't gone into a mode where your body has actually reached its maximum or even reaching its maximum, then you don't even need it. But say if you're doing that much intensity of training and you are still 12 years of age and you are having like back-to-back sessions, you're doing gym and in 15 minutes you're going into like say 3 hours of training, then you need it. Now, coming to
Right.
whey protein has the exact same implication as well. So, whey protein as well, I always say that, just because it's a whey protein, you just can't take a scoop of it. You need to decide whether you need that much. You're probably better off doing just about 10 grams of the whole 30-gram scoop. So, you always have to keep in mind how much is going to give you maximum benefit and then plan it. So yes, we consider a BCAA, a glutamine, a whey protein also as supplements. And yes, when you go into a creatinine and other enhancers, then they are also supplements. But we consider all of these as supplements, and we take a call on it based on your blood test or your intensity of training, and often both together.
So tell me now, when a lot of players are actually getting onto the other side of the lockdown and say
Right.
they haven't been training, most of them say, even if they are the kinds who are taking over the counter whey proteins and BCAAs, don't you think, and I know it may not even be a question, but it's almost like how harmful can this then actually be to the players? Instead of helping them, they might just end up overloading the systems with the wrong kind of substances.
Yes, in fact, it's very, very important. You can't get into first day of training and start doing a scoop of protein, and you can't get into first day of training and start loading yourself on creatinine and things like that. No, not really. You first need to build your body to an intensity and then start doing it. And
Right.
it can really load up your kidneys, because if you're not hydrating yourself enough, if you have
Right.
not planned the rest of your amino acids or even your vitamins and minerals through the day properly, and you're
Right.
only loading on these substances, then your kidney
Right.
is going to start failing. So, you're
Right.
going to probably have like a high creatinine level. You're probably going to have other issues as well. But it can start with something where, you probably feel extreme pain in your lower abdomen, and then you go and do a check, and then you figure out you're probably, you've overloaded your kidneys. So it's never advised that, with absolute low intensity of training or just warming up to intensify your training, you need those additional nutritional supplements per se. And what's always important to remember is a supplement is an addition to what you're eating, right?
Eating. Right. Right.
It cannot replace what you're eating. It cannot come in and say, hey, you know what, I don't need water, I just need a BCAA. And you can't come in and say, hey, you know what, I don't need to, it's okay if I'm eating junk at breakfast and lunch, but I just do my protein around training and I'm going to be fine. No, they are supplementing. They're supplementing, and they are not replacing what you eat. So which is why nutrition is so important.
So, if I ask you this question as a sports nutritionist, what is your take on the importance of this diet? And I know it just seems very funny to ask a doctor, what do you think about taking medicines? But I know that your take on the importance of diet would be so different from what we usually talk about. So I really want you to be able to just explain in your own words how important it really is to have this diet and specific nutrition for the players.
It's as important as training is. Like if you
Okay.
if I have to give you an example, like a correlating thing, it's like if you wouldn't go and compete if you've not trained, right? So it's the same thing of, you don't want to go and start doing substances that people do at a high intensity level without even getting there. So you need to
Got it.
correct your basics, which is your eating. You have to eat 5 times a day. You have to plan your eating. You need to plan your eating to performance. So we call it performance nutrition. We call it
Right.
performance nutrition because you're planning what you're eating to help you in performance. And then after you've corrected those gamuts of your routine, then you come in and you put in a supplementation. So until you're eating right, you shouldn't be thinking of nutritional supplements. So eating right is very important. And even if that is your dal, chawal and roti, you still need to know how you need to plan it through the day. You can't be eating the same way on a Sunday when you're resting and eating the same way on a Wednesday when you're having your high intensity or your LT training. You need to eat right, and that's when it's going to show you difference in performance.
So tell me again then, when you talk about the performance and the difference in training and all, again, it would run across the spectrum of somebody who's a beginner versus somebody who's in an advanced, and so when someone who's in a pro training, right? So again, each one's demands from the diet and from the nutrition would be different.
Yes, it is. It's a very, very different. It's very, very different. And a beginner's diet, like we say, it's a foundation where we're just correcting your eating. And advanced person who's forever going on tournaments and training back to back, their diet is different. And it is different from the basics of what you're giving each meal to how you're actually planning, how quickly they need to ready themselves for the next day of training or the next day of competition or their next session of time trial or whatever it is. So it is very different for a beginner. Like a beginner's routine sometimes is pretty simple, but when it is advanced, then each and every meal has to be something that's either helping you recover or it's going to help you perform, or it's just going to let you relax. So basically recover again. So each and every meal at that level has to be thought over and has to be strategized and planned.
So tell me something, when you talk about recovery, does diet and nutrition help one recover during an injury, or does it then also help you prevent an injury?
Both ways, very honestly. Okay, answering the first part, which is, does it help you come out of an injury? Oh, you need your nutrition in place for you to get out of your injury. A lot of times players call us and say, so, we want to put our plan on hold because, we've got an injury, and then, so we don't want to do it right now. And it's so important that you're actually eating right during your injury, because you want those muscles to get back and, help you heal. You want the vitamin C's to come into your system. You want your, and also more than anything, because you're in your injury phase and in your training, you don't want to gain too much fat percentage and then go back to training, right? So starting from that, when you are injured, the micronutrients, which is your vitamin C's, your vitamin E's, your collagen, your antioxidants, your glutamines, and all of these are so important for you to recover, along with your physiotherapy that's going to help you, along with whatever the doctor or the physiotherapist has told you. And and how do you prevent an injury? Now that, again, nutrition is very important, because if you've been doing back-to-back sessions, right? But you've not been eating right, you've not been recovering from a previous session before you go into the next session, then obviously your muscles bearing that wear and tear and going into the next session without getting okay. So while your coach has planned and expected that you would have done what is needed to recover and push you in the next session, your muscles here are crying. So at some point they're going to snap out, or you're going to have some kind of an injury, or you're going to have a bad cramp, you're going to have your shin injured, anything can happen. So nutrition is very important. So it's basically like fueling. Like you want to make sure that at all points you're giving the best fuel to your system, and not that okay, you know what, I'm not going to go in today, so it's okay, I'll feed myself something junk, and then tomorrow when I go in, I'll feed myself okay. It's not going to work that way.
But tell me something, like you mentioned coaches. Now, at least when we are talking about our country, right, it's sports is still a hugely unorganized sector, and you know this best. Coaches themselves are coming across either as prior players or just someone who really has trained to kind of coach, but most of them are not experts in the fields of how other sports experts come in together, whether it's an analyst or a nutritionist or a physio or something, they double up as all of those. Uh, how important then it is for somebody like an expert to come into a player's life, and how early do you think they should start with a nutrition plan, uh, for, say, even because as early as when you are a child and you begin playing, but a lot of parents do not sort of even understand the importance of expert help at that point in time, because they are receiving a lot of information from all around. Uh, what can we really, say to them, that how early do you think you should really put your child into the hands of an expert?
I would say as early as they decide to take this professional, to take it up seriously and want to take it in a competitive zone, then you have to only deal with experts. You can't
Right.
say I'm going to be, see, when you're going for a more recreational routine where you're probably only going 3 days a week and you're doing 1 hour each day, or you're only doing a weekend session, then you're doing it more for recreation, to be physically active or to learn that sport. But if you've decided that you are going to go and take this up seriously and it's going to be something that's going to keep you going, I mean, as much like, since you speak of kids, so as much as going to school is a routine, if going for training is an added routine, then that's when you know that you only have to deal with experts, because you don't want to get into something and then be directed in the wrong way or not eat right correctly. And a lot of times this happens. A lot of times we've had people who have told us that, they got into the sport, they were very serious about it, they did everything that the coach told them to do, which they did very well with, but
Right.
somewhere they felt they were not performing anymore, and so then they
Right.
probably underestimated their own capacity, and so they dropped out, or they start not taking it seriously anymore. but
Right.
but if you've decided to take this up seriously, then you need an expert nutritionist, an expert trainer, an expert coach to be working with you. You don't want to be working with mediocre, or you don't want to be working with no one at all and deciding it up for yourself. So
Right.
I would say this to parents: if you're always looking for the best school for your children to join, then you need to look for the best experts for your child to go to when they're also going to take up something seriously.
Yes, and while you mentioned this thing about performance, and the importance of nutrition in performance, there is, I don't know now whether I would call it a myth or whether it's really a reality. And I'm sure posing this question to you would help us gain some insight. Uh, there's this huge debate between vegetarian diets for players, and a lot of stories of a lot of players who started off as vegetarian or vegans, but the idea that meat and other kind of animal proteins are the only way to kind of build muscle and it helps you perform. So they have their stories of how they used to be vegetarian and started eating a
Non.
non-vegetarian diet to enhance their performance. What's your take on this? Is this, how much truth is there in this?
Um, Very honestly, in today's age and time, I think it doesn't matter. It's a choice you want to take, and
Right.
you can make do with it. You can, I mean, like the most recent that's been on Netflix, like your Game Changers tells you to be a vegan, right? Like how,
Right.
like the top athletes and your top bodybuilders and all of them are
Huh.
vegans. So
Okay.
we have had a lot of kids, especially around the 12 and the 13, when the parents are like extremely keen on them taking it forward, and they have people saying, no, you know what, you need to give a beef soup, you need to
Right.
give chicken soup, your child has
Right.
to have chicken every day. So
Yeah.
they come to us and they ask us saying, hey, what's your take on it? Like, if it's needed, we will do it, but what's your take on it? Like, culturally or ethically, we don't want to do it. So in
Yes.
today's age and time, you don't really need to change your eating preference if you don't want to do it. There are enough support and enough food and enough science to actually help you, and you can be you can just be a vegan or vegetarian, and you can still do as much or even better. Or I would never say even better to anybody, because I always think you have to plan it out, and if you're planning it out, you can be your best. You can do well, being a vegetarian is not going to stop you from performing your best, and being a non-vegetarian is not going to give you that extra push or extra 10 seconds in your game. No, it doesn't matter whether you're a vegetarian or non-vegetarian. What matters is for you to plan, for you to see how you feel, and then for you to take a call on it. Right.
Right.
And the reason why the entire thing has come up on the vegetarian and the vegan routine is because vegetarian and vegan food is filled with a lot of fruits and vegetables, and when
Right.
you're a non-vegetarian, and especially a hardcore non-vegetarian, you're sometimes just forgetting to eat your basics. So
Right.
and you need those fruits and vegetables for your recovery, for you those antioxidants to come in. So the reason why a vegan vegetarian diet has gained as much importance is because a vegan and vegetarian diet is very, very healthy for your cardiovascular system. Okay.
Right.
And your cardiovascular system governs your performance. Okay.
Exactly.
So starting
Right.
from your entire endurance to everything, it's governed by how well your heart beats and how well you can perform. So which is where vegan and vegetarian has gained that importance today to say yes. It is actually helping me much better than me being on a non-vegetarian diet. At the same time, I would never take my stand on either. I always say it is for the individual to decide. We will help you plan it. You want to plan it this way, you want to plan it that way, we will help you. But you have to take the call because you are the one performing, you are the one seeing the difference. So, and each body is different. So, and each person looks at it differently. But scientifically, yes, there's enough evidence on either side, and I would always leave it to the athlete to decide what makes them feel good. But all we say is, whichever way you choose, we will plan it out for you. You don't have to be worried that you're going to be losing out on something this way or that way.
Right. And then again, so when when these athletes or players and all of them are traveling, or when they're in between, say, a tournament season or a game season, like we call it, and especially now on the other side of the lockdown, because we are very uncertain as to when the pro seasons will actually start. Uh, there may be very short duration of time for them to prep up for it, or at the same time, it might be even longer before it starts.
That's right.
So is there this whole plan that kind of shifts for the players, for the nutrition, their entire build, the body? How can they then adapt to it through their diet?
It does shift. It does shift. In fact, on season and off season, your training does shift. But what we do in our what we've seen over the years, and how we've seen that you can't sometimes plan it. Okay, you can't sometimes plan it because they could be having back to back, like especially for some sports, the months of April, May, June, July is so hectic, and for some sports, the months of November, December, January, February is so hectic. So you can't really plan it. And then in between, in athletics, it's like your June and July is very busy. So you really can't plan it, is what we've understood over the years, and we understand as sports nutritionists. So when we work on nutrition plans, we work it in such a way that irrespective of you, even if they have to tell you, wake up tomorrow and go for a tournament, the food that you've been eating helps you. Okay, so we always plan it in such a way that you are prepared at any point to compete. But if you're somebody who's going one location to another location to another location on back-to-back competitions, then it's important that at each location you're eating right. You're probably not going to get the same food. You're probably, in Chennai, you're going to get idli, dosa, sambar. In Delhi, you're going to get aloo paratha. But you can't go to Delhi and say, hey, I need idli, sambar right now. So then we need to plan it. So as experts, we are always on the lookout of what is available locally and easily. And we then put that into their plans to make sure that it's possible for them to do it, and they're not worried, okay, what do I eat, what do I not eat? The food shouldn't become a worry for them. But answering your question of how do you shift it, because it's so uncertain and not always planned, the shift, you don't have as much time to shift. Like, very honestly, all of my athletes have never got as much break in their life as they're getting right now in the lockdown. Okay,
right.
So they have never seen so much off season. So this is the first time they're seeing it. So we always make a plan in such a way that you are ready. for either training or for competition. But if tomorrow you wake up and you have a competition, then what you do during the day, we change it. But if tomorrow
Right.
you're going to wake up and you're only going for training, then what you do during the day is different. So that's
Right.
how we differentiate based on what you're going to do during the day. And in fact, on that note, a lot of players and a lot of parents, in fact, parents call us up very, very frantically saying, there's a competition tomorrow. What should we do? What should we do? What should
Yes,
we do?
I was going to come
So
to that.
so no, that happens, and it's funny because it happens even when you've been dealing with players for 5-6 years. The parents are always still
Exactly.
anxious. So it's like your last minute exams preparation. No matter how much you've studied, you also always want to know
Yes, so
what's
you
going to be
always want
the.
the expert help and the extra notes and the extra everything. So
Yes, you
how
want to
do
know what's
you?
going to be your bumper question tomorrow and
Yes,
prepare for it.
yes,
So
yes.
that way we tell parents about 3-4 things that they have to do the previous day, depending on the sport and depending
Right.
on what time the next day they're going to have the event. Okay, so if they're going to have the event first thing in the morning, then you're obviously prepping up from the previous day afternoon itself. And if they're going to have it only
Right.
in the evening the next day, then you probably start prepping up only in the morning. This is prepping up in terms of the last minute add-ons, right?
But
So there are a few last minute add-ons that you do give, but that's we always make sure that even if you don't have those last minute add-ons, you can still perform your best. So what I was saying is, one was hydration. Second is you need to plan what you're going to be eating based on how much time you have left for your events to come. Okay. So
right.
now if your event's only going to be happening, so say they've come and told you your event is only going to be happening in the second half of the day and you're done with your event at 9 in the morning, which means you then plan to probably eat a decent breakfast, eat a light lunch or a lunch based on what kind of event you have, and then be prepared. Then you kind of relax through the morning. Now, if they come and say, no, your event's going to be in the next 10 minutes, then you're not going to eat anything. You shouldn't be eating anything. So that's when we go into a performance nutrition basis of, okay, that's when if the player has already been taking any amino acids or any isotonic drinks, then we ask them to just sip on that, right? What's important for you to remember is that when you're competing or when you're doing your event, your body does not have the time to digest the food and give you energy. Okay, what you need to focus on is all digestion should be done 20 minutes before you get to your event. Okay, so if there's only 20 minutes, then you're not going to be eating anything. Okay, you're only going to be sipping on something that's going to give you a little kick in, a little energy. That's pretty much it. If you've
Right.
got about 1 hour, you've got 2 hours, you've got 3 hours, then you put food into your body that your body can digest and go and store it as a reserve to come in and give you the energy when you're going to do your event. So you really need to plan it based on how much time is left for the event and then decide what options to do. So we tell parents to always keep in hand a banana, always keep in hand like
Yes.
probably a sandwich if they're comfortable with it. Sometimes we say something like even potatoes, sweet potatoes, some granola bars. So we always tell parents to keep things which are an SOS and emergency in hand. So if there happens to be an unplanned routine that comes in, then you know what to do. Most times parents call us up and say, hey, this is what it is. So we say, okay, pick from this and do this.
Right.
But over the years, they also understand. Sometimes they make mistakes. A lot of times they do make mistakes. And then they
Right.
come back and say what to do the next time. And then we kind of guide them through it.
Right. So I'm going to ask you one last question and not take too much of your time. And are there any tips that you can share with us? Nutritional tips or that you can say that, okay, these are the kind of quick fixes like you spoke about bananas and granolas. What really can a player keep in, say, apart from their in their kit, apart from their equipment? What can they keep,
Okay.
something that's kind of a quick fix, which is nutritional, which is really gives them value for what they are taking into their body and enhance their performance?
So you're talking about a kit in the competition or are you talking about training?
Both,
Both.
whatever.
Okay. All right. Okay. So here's my first thing to anybody. Don't keep something that you've never eaten before. Okay. Do
Very
not
important,
keep
right?
something that you've never done before because you are
Right.
on a trial on your event day. Okay. So
Right.
that's the first thing for competition. Second, always have a banana unless you're allergic to banana. Always have a banana. That's your
Right.
quickest fix. Okay. Third would be have some dates, figs, raisins, and dried fruits and nuts. Okay. And the fourth thing the third thing I would say is have plenty of water to save you yourself, right? These are
Right.
the three things: banana, dried fruits and nuts, and some water.
Right.
And these are three things that must be there. Like it is a
Right.
must have, right?
Right.
And beyond this, then you plan for it. Beyond this, you plan for it. You plan for it based on your cultural eating. You plan for it based on the kind of sport you're going for. But these three have to be there. I'm going to take the thing of saying one fourth thing, which is your post-event meal has to be ready. Okay, whatever it is, your post-event meal has to be ready. Because what
Right.
happens is a lot of times everybody is so prepared for the event, they forget what to have after the event, and so the
Right.
next event is gone for a toss, right? That
Right.
could be a different life altogether, but yes.
Right.
So just so four things that would be banana, dates, dried fruits, nuts, water, and your post-event meal. The fourth,
Right.
these are four things that you keep with you in your kit bag when you're going for a competition. If you're going in for training, then I'm going to just say water. In fact, it would be the same. All four the same, I would say.
Yes.
In fact,
Yes.
your water, your banana, your dates, and your post-training meal. All
Right.
four, I would say they're pretty much the same. They would change based on competition and training, but the banana, dried fruits, and water don't change.
Thank you so much for this. This is such a
welcome.
handy tip, and I hope a lot of them will now know that along with the rackets or the jackets or the other clothes or whatever that they have to keep, they remember to keep this to be able to at least play the sport. Right? It doesn't take a racket to play the sport. It takes you and your body to actually play the sport. And that's where you come and fuel in it. So thank you so much for this absolutely engaging conversation today. And I mean, I can't even think of the n number of topics that we can actually talk about and have so many numerous lives to educate, because again, sports nutrition is so much not spoken about, and there is so much unawareness about this that we really wish we could bring this out to a lot more people and make it accessible. So thank you so much for joining once again. A huge big thank you to Qua Nutrition. Thank you so much, Mr. Ryan, Jean, Suhasini, once again. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Sonali, and thank you so much for having me engaged and asking such important questions. And I really hope a lot of players and athletes and coaches are going to watch this and know. And like you said, sports nutrition is such an untouched topic. Until unless they are in the top and want to perform, a lot of people don't take care of it. So we can always have a lot of engaging conversations and create more awareness. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Suhasini.